Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernier Bust Show. Elizabeth Warren is the Hillary Clinton of 2020. So we've posited that before. What do we mean by that? Let's ask John R. MacArthur, Spectator USA. Article came out recently in the Spectator's November 2019 U.S. edition. How did Elizabeth Warren, a left-wing populist, become the candidate of Democrats who dislike left-wing populism? We've talked about Donald Trump being a pseudo-populist and Bernie being the real McCoy. If you followed Elizabeth Warren, you know that she's not a real McCoy in any way. She's a real centrist, but she doesn't want anyone to know that. So why is it fine for Warren to menace the rich, but not for Bernie Sanders? Why can we rule out Bernie because he's an existential threat to the Democratic Party and not rule out Warren? And by we, I mean John Cowan of Third Way and Neera Tanden of Center for American Progress, and I mean the Clinton machine, and I mean Hollywood, and I mean big money in general, Wall Street bankers, hedge fund managers, old moneyed families, and so forth. So why is it fine for Warren to menace these people and not Bernie? Because everyone knows that Warren isn't going to actually do anything to take these people out of power. She's not an existential threat. Some polls now are placing her ahead of Joe Biden. And so you look at Emily Tish Sussman. We followed her earlier, and Mimi Rocha on MSNBC. Absolute shills, absolutely shilling for the establishment. Now they suddenly they can't say anything bad about Elizabeth Warren. They're praising her effusively, as a matter of fact. And then Chris Matthews and Rachel Maddow. You should listen to what Jimmy Dore says about Chris Matthews and Rachel Maddow if you really want to know what's going on with MSNBC. And he talks about how people lose their jobs there when they come out against war, for one thing. But anything, if you're openly hostile or even refusing to prop up the establishment on MSNBC, you're going to lose your job. And Jimmy's been great at showing us how that all works. MSNBC on Twitter gets called MSDNC. It functions as the mouthpiece of an official Democratic Party, still dominated by the Clintons and Barack Obama. Sussman said, if you are still supporting Sanders as opposed to Warren, it's kind of showing your sexism. And I showed that clip on this show. Besides being a courageous feminist, I love this snark in here, courageous feminist, Sussman happens to be the daughter of two billionaires. She seems unafraid of Warren's plan to increase taxes on the super rich. Warren ticks all the boxes marked progressive that used to belong mostly to Sanders. That's because she copies him. She is unequivocally in favor of impeaching Donald Trump, tough on Wall Street, and keen to break up monopolies and concentrated wealth. Yet, she doesn't frighten the establishment, at least not in the way that Sanders does. The reason is that so far in her career, after she switched over from being a Republican when she was 47 years old, Warren has proven to be a reliable party loyalist, never an insurgent. Her private conversations with Hillary Clinton, reported by NBC News, are another good example of how the former Harvard law professor makes nice to the bigwigs she claims to be fighting. In fact, it's no secret that Warren wants to appease a party oligarchy that is determined to crush Sanders. I've said this before on the show. You know that she knows. She knows exactly why she's in the race. And what's his name? Kyle Kalinske pointed out that it's an absolute certainty that she cut a deal with Hillary Clinton not to run in 2016. That's why she stayed out, because Hillary was running. In deference to Hillary, she stayed out. And that's why she is running this time. And we trace that for certainty through the WikiLeaked email from Michael Kives and Darnell Strom to Tulsi Gabbard, which shows that they are all in for they were all in for Hillary, raising money for Hillary, and they spanked Tulsi for having the audacity to disrespect, in their words, Hillary Clinton. And so what happened is those two donated to Joe Biden, they donated to Kamala Harris, they donated to Cory Booker, and they donated to Elizabeth Warren. So Elizabeth Warren has to know that she's the spoiler, that she's the one who's supposed to take Bernie down. She didn't endorse Bernie last time, and not only did she not endorse him this time, she ran against him, funded by the Clinton machine. So there you go. Is that a true progressive or not? She's more like Hillary than anyone dares to say. Maybe she's more like Hillary than anyone dares to say out loud. When the two women talk on the phone, as they do, maybe it's more about power than about good government. Maybe. Warren now travels the country speaking of revolution, in quotes, but has taken pains to reassure Democratic barons that she's not even a boat rocker. The barons hope that, following Sanders' heart attack, he will fade, while Warren scoops up his supporters and Biden stumbles on. For a party torn between its mega-rich donors, the ones cultivated by the Clintons and Obama, and a base that is increasingly left-wing, the actual voters, Warren seems a happy compromise. She has become the consensus choice, assuming Biden continues his incoherent ways and the party is forced to drop him. The party has already dropped him. Biden is yesterday's news. They're already completely behind Elizabeth. They don't care what Biden does. They don't see fit to cripple him. They don't see fit to hamstring him. They're just going on, letting things take its natural course with Joe Biden. But they've, behind the scenes, they've already completely switched. And how you know is you see how the New York Times reports things, how MSNBC, how the Washington Post, how all the machinery of the Clinton machine functions now. And you see and Emily and Mimi are just, probably they're the most reliable indicators that the machine has switched over to Elizabeth. Study the New York Times and the Washington Post. These two bastions of elite liberal thinking. Elite liberal, that's interesting how those words don't fit together in my mind. They like Warren. They might have preferred Kamala Harris, but Kamala's campaign fizzled. That's because Tulsi Gabbard took her the fuck out. For them, Warren is infinitely preferable to Sanders, whom they have spent the last 4 years attacking. The Times plays the role of Pravda for the Democrats. That is brilliant. The Times plays the role of Pravda for the Democrats, acting as party megaphone and advance guard. National correspondent Jonathan Martin wrote a piece earlier this year headlined, "What Elizabeth Warren is Quietly Telling Democratic Insiders." And we featured that article on the Bernie or Bust show. She said it so quietly, in quotes, that her campaign encouraged the Times to broadcast her message for the world to hear. While her liberal agenda may be further left than some in the Democratic establishment would prefer, she is a team player who is seeking to lead the party, not stage a hostile takeover of it, wrote Martin. Translation, this is not reading too much into it. When push comes to shove, Warren will put party above principle. Warren used to be, like Clinton, used to be a registered Republican, switching at 47. Hillary also had convictions. We're talking about Warren's sincere convictions when it comes to trade and the danger of concentrated wealth and the importance of equal opportunity in education. And if you read her book, The Two Income Trap, he's funny because he kind of says some things and you think he means it, and other things you think, how could he possibly mean that? I really like this article. I hope this guy becomes an ally in the Bernie or bust fight, because his insight would really help going forward. I hope we can get him to write an article on Bernie or bust. So Hillary, look how she turned out. As a Democrat, Warren has always respected party protocol. She's been eager to stress that she has no desire to seize control of the party machinery, which ensures the trains carrying money and patronage jobs run on time. That was really good. She even signed a pledge authored by the Association of State Democratic Committees not to poach on their turf with a supra-party organization of her own. This is precisely the sin Bernie Sanders and his allies committed by creating a national nonprofit advocacy organization, Our Revolution, which competes directly with the DNC and its 50 state counterparts. When Sanders talks about revolution, he really means it. He not only wants to live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he also intends to place his proxies at DNC headquarters at 430 South Capitol Street. With Elizabeth, who knows? It might be Chelsea Clinton at the helm. Wow, that's frightening. Perhaps Warren really believes she can sneak one past the party gatekeepers, the John Podesta, Rahm Emanuel type guard dogs. And we're going to switch over pretty soon to Crystal Ball to talk about Rahm Emanuel. She definitely has his number. And we already know about John Podesta because of WikiLeaks. We already know where they are. And they are the guard dogs who enforce party discipline. They're the ones who put the hammer down on Tulsi Gabbard. And that's why she's been smeared relentlessly since she left the DNC position that she had. So Elizabeth Warren, perhaps she believes she can transform the Democrats from the inside. She wouldn't be the first. Look at Howard Dean, the former Democratic governor of Vermont, who in 2003 ran for president against his party's and Hillary Clinton's majority support for George W. Bush's invasion of Iraq. So Howard Dean used to be on the right side of things. He was destroyed and humiliated by concerted party and media sabotage, just like Hillary, or just like Tulsi. Dean was destroyed and humiliated by concerted party and media sabotage ever since he has functioned as a faithful party member. He even endorsed Clinton over Sanders in 2015. So Dean has they're still picking on him, even though he sucked up to the power. They still aren't treating him very well. And Warren would likely get the same treatment if Biden survives his own ineptitude, and not to mention the embarrassment of his son Hunter's possible corruption. Certain corruption. Same with Nancy Pelosi's son, certain corruption. So if Warren does get the nomination, she might get treated like Howard Dean. Despite numerous entreaties to run against Hillary, Bernie was one of the people who asked Warren to run against Hillary. Warren declined, either from political prudence, fear, or actual respect for the idea of Clinton becoming the first woman president. And I think you're being a little too kind to her, but I think it's just Elizabeth knows which way the wind blows, and she goes that way every time. She could have lent a crucial feminist voice to her supposed ideological twin, Bernie Sanders, but she refused. To get a sense of the real Elizabeth Warren, it's useful to go back to a time when Hillary Clinton was preparing her second run for president and considered the presumptive nominee. Warren was widely expected to challenge her from the left, but she didn't. In a September 2014 interview on PBS, the veteran liberal journalist told Bill Moyers, the veteran liberal journalist, Bill Moyers, did his best to draw Warren out and distinguish her from the party's satraps such as Clinton and Biden. Moyers put his finger on the issue that the party is run by a well-funded centrist or neoliberal free market elite that is dangerously at odds with its old labor base. And in other episodes of the Bernie or Bust show, we talk about the research of Thomas Piketty, who says that the Democrats all over the world have been left-leaning, and it's all confused now. So the Democrats have shifted from being leftist to being a party of elite, well-educated people with good resumes. To be frank, he told Warren, Mrs. Clinton, for all the admiration and respect she commands, is the embodiment of that establishment. Do you think the neoliberal wing of the Democratic Party can put the country back on a path away from corporate and plutocratic control? What did Elizabeth Warren do when asked that question? She ducked the question. Jimmy Dore loves to make fun of how she ducks questions. And we go on about the fierce but failed opposition to bankruptcy laws in the early 2000s. These laws make it harder for individuals to obtain protection from creditors, a worthy cause for the American left. Biden championed the bankruptcy bills because the nation's largest issuer of credit cards, MBNA, was headquartered in his home state of Delaware and had been a major contributor to his campaign. Hillary Clinton at first resisted the new bankruptcy laws, in part because she discussed the issue with Warren. But Hillary eventually supported the, quote, reform. It has been suggested that Clinton's about-face was the reason Warren held out on endorsing Hillary. In the end, though, she did plump for Clinton, and today the two have evidently reached an understanding. And that's what's going on now. And really, if you want to blame anyone for Trump, Elizabeth Warren is the most likely person you could blame for Trump. A lot of Sanders supporters believe that, and we haven't forgotten, Elizabeth. We haven't forgotten that you are the reason we have Donald Trump. You paved the way for Trump. Most national polls before the Democratic Convention showed Sanders winning convincingly over Trump. Now, the author of the story wouldn't go so far as to pin the blame on Warren, because she at least withheld her endorsement of Clinton until after Sanders dropped out. But the argument is a fair one. It's a fair one. If Warren in 2020 is profiting from Sanders' bold run in 2016, she begins to look less like a heroine of the left and more like an opportunist. If she's an opportunist, like Hillary, she'll do whatever it takes to secure the nomination. And that means she'll take dark money in the general election. That means she will appease Big Pharma. She'll appease health insurance companies like the one. Her daughter is hip deep in the health insurance industry. So Elizabeth Warren, this is fair. This guy is talking about Donald Trump. So let's pivot, like Hillary would do. Let's pivot to the general election here. This is written by Anis Shivani Salan, very recent article. Shivani predicted before the 2016 election that Donald Trump would be elected. Quoting, I had felt that way ever since he rode down that golden escalator with his rapist invective. Ever since he was elected, I've also believed that he'll be re-elected more easily this time. Max Blumenthal also thinks that Donald Trump will easily be re-elected. And we went over that a week ago, I think. An illustrative personal anecdote, one of many over the last 3 years, a creative writing PhD I know with tons of debt, whose wife happens to be an undocumented Filipina, became mightily angered by the promise of student debt cancellation. What about those who have paid their dues by taking out debt, he asked. No doubt he would refuse a blanket amnesty for, quote, illegals, unquote, too. His DACA wife, as he sees it, paid her dues. This is sick. And so this article talks about the sickness of the liberal elites saying that they're at least as sick as Donald Trump, if not more. And I agree completely. Columnists at the New York Times, he's picking the right target here. He or she is picking the right target here. Columnists at the New York Times are all angry at the possibility of decriminalizing border crossings, healthcare for the undocumented, and the abolition of private insurance. These are liberals. These are elitist pieces of shit. In fact, they don't want to do away with Trumpian inhumanity. They want the oppression to continue, but without the transparent rhetoric. And that's where we have the real difference between the liberal elite, the centrists of the Democratic Party, and the true progressives who want to take on the insurance companies and Trumpian inhumanity. And if you look at the true center of the center, you've got the New York Times right in the middle of it. You've got WAPO right in the middle of it. You've got MSDNC right in the middle of it. And they're just as evil, by far, just as evil as Donald Trump. Historical movement in long cycles can't be short-circuited, as we can see in the resistance of the liberal elite toward Bernie Sanders, the only candidate who could beat Trump, versus the stampede toward Elizabeth Warren, who provides a safe alternative and will surely lose. That's what you need to know, you elitists who can vote for Elizabeth Warren. She will surely lose because she doesn't have any populist support. She doesn't have the poor people and the poorly educated people, especially in swing states, who have been beaten to pieces by NAFTA and other free trade agreements. And then they go on and talk about Trump and say that he's a lot smarter than people realize and that his political sense is a lot better than people realize. He understands power. Not one of his opponents is prepared to say that power is America. Brute, unforgiving, no second chances power. And that's where the liberal elites don't get it. They don't understand what's going on. And they don't understand populism. They don't understand the pain and suffering that the American people have endured. Now, Trump does understand that, but he has no intention of helping anybody. Now we go to Rahm Emanuel. This is a little, this is Warren admitting she has no health care plan. You should watch that one. I think I'm going to skip ahead here to Crystal Ball destroying Rahm Emanuel. And, but this is still true. I'll just make the point for Sagar here. Warren is caught admitting she has no health care plan. Well, let me just show you Elizabeth Warren here and how she's talking about not having a health care plan. This is what she's actually saying recently. She was saying this to people asking her about health care.
It's not that I have a plan that says we're going to do this part, and then we're going to do this part, and then we're going to do this part.
It's not that I have a plan, but I have a plan. But it's not that I have a plan.
No, instead, my plan is we're going to get to a table like this. We're going to make sure everybody gets represented. We're going to understand the urgency of the moment to get this solved for people who aren't covered, and get ourselves on a path where everybody can get there and everybody can get covered.
That's how you know she's lying. She puts one hand up here, or she puts a hand on her rib cage, and you can just tell right away. This is. I'm just so full of shit. You can't even believe it. We're going to sit around a table like this, and we're just going to make it up. How is that a plan? It's urgent. It's urgent, Elizabeth, like you said. Why are we going to sit around a table like this and people are just going to figure out what the plan is? Bernie has an actual plan for Medicare for all, and you have a daughter hip deep in the industry. You don't have a plan to do anything that's going to change. You're full of it. And now we go to the gatekeeper. We talked about Podesta and Rahm Emanuel as being gatekeepers of the DNC, and then Crystal takes him to task for this article. Someone needs to say it. Medicare for all is a pipe dream. We're not going to do this whole article, but let me give you a taste of it.
Mr. Emanuel follows politics, but plenty of someones have actually already said it. Thank you very much. Allow me to introduce you to Joe Biden.
Joe Biden has
John
said
Delaney, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Steve Bullock, Michael Bennett, John Hickenlooper, industry ad buys during Democratic primary debates, every debate moderator ever, and also you.
Yes. So her point is that he's not the only one to say it. He thinks he's so courageous. And she says, not only does he think Medicare for all is a pipe dream, but everything else on the true progressive platform is a pipe dream. This is why we can't do it. He sounds like Hillary again. This is why we can't do it. And Elizabeth, she parrots Bernie. Well, we can do it, but she has no actual intention of doing it. So she's smoke and mirrors. She's trying to, and she's definitely ready to pivot. She's setting herself up perfectly for the pivot if she gets anointed again by the Clinton machine. The other thing some people are tossing around is that Hillary will leap into the fray, and it's still a year out. Well, it's not a year away from the primaries, but Hillary still could leap in, and Elizabeth could be her running mate. But I think Hillary, as psychopathic as she is, understands that she can't win. So more likely is she's going to anoint Elizabeth and do everything she can, visibly or invisibly, both probably, to get her the nomination. But she will surely lose. And that's the end of the story. I'll leave you with this beautiful picture. My son Ethan is a cartoonist and Emma's a pretty good cartoonist. Actually, all my kids are much better at drawing than I am. And Ethan was admiring this cartoon work. This is pretty impressive. So keep that image in your head. We're just looking at Hillary reincarnated. Elizabeth Warren is the Hillary Clinton of 2020. Keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernie bus train. Come get on board the Bernie bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board